You are walking down a crowded street right now in your mind, surrounded by hundreds of people. None of them look at you. None of them speak to you. You could disappear into the pavement, and most of them would never notice. It feels lonely. It feels almost unnatural. But the real answer for why this happens is far stranger than loneliness. Your brain is not malfunctioning around crowds. It is running a program that is millions of years old, and that program was never designed for crowds this large. Think about the last time you were in a packed elevator. Nobody spoke. Everyone stared at the floor numbers like they held the secrets of the universe. Was that politeness? Or something deeper? Scientists have a name for what happens to a person inside a crowd. They call it deindividuation. Strip away the jargon, and it simply means this: the bigger the group around you, the smaller you start to feel inside it. Your sense of being noticed, judged, even seen as a unique person begins to dissolve. And the strange part is that this isn't a flaw in your psychology, it's a feature, one that kept your ancestors alive. Picture a small band of early humans on the African savanna 60,000 years ago. There were no strangers in their world. Every face belonged to someone. Every voice had a name attached to it. A typical hunter-gatherer band numbered somewhere between 20 and 50 people. You knew every single one of them, their moods, their habits, who to trust and who to avoid. Anthropologist Robin Dunbar studied this limit decades later and found something remarkable. The human brain seems wired to maintain roughly 150 meaningful relationships at most, not thousands, not millions, about 150. He called it social cognition's natural ceiling, and it lines up almost perfectly with the size of ancient human communities. Now, stretch that brain across a modern city of 9 million strangers. It breaks. Not literally, but functionally. Your ancient social wiring was built for villages, not metropolises. So when you walk past hundreds of faces a day, your brain does something it was never asked to do before history sped up. It starts filtering most of those faces out as background noise, not people, just scenery. This is where the science gets uncomfortable. In March of 1964, a young woman named Kitty Genovese was attacked outside her apartment building in Queens, New York. Newspaper reports claimed dozens of neighbors heard her cries and did nothing. The exact details of that night have been debated and revised by historians since, but the case sparked a question that two psychologists couldn't shake. If so many people witnessed suffering, why didn't anyone act? Bibb Latané and John Darley decided to test it directly. In a series of experiments throughout the late 1960s, they placed participants in rooms, sometimes alone, sometimes with strangers, and simulated an emergency, like smoke filling the room or a person appearing to have a seizure through an intercom. The results were almost identical every time. When a person believed they were the only one who could help, they acted quickly, often within seconds. But when they believed other people were also present, ready to help, the odds of anyone helping dropped sharply, and the response time, when it came at all, slowed dramatically. They called it the bystander effect. But the mechanism underneath it has an even better name: diffusion of responsibility. Your brain quietly does the math. If 10 people are watching and any one of them could step in, the felt weight of your own duty splits 10 ways. You're not less caring. You are running an ancient calculation that responsibility is shared, and shared responsibility feels lighter, even when it shouldn't be. Here's where the story gets even stranger. In small ancestral bands, this calculation made sense. If something happened in your group of 30 people, you knew exactly who was nearby, who saw what you saw, and what was expected of you personally. Responsibility was never ambiguous because everyone was known. The brain never had to guess who else might step up because you could see them, name them, and predict them. Cities erased that certainty. A sociologist named Stanley Milgram, the same researcher famous for his controversial obedience experiments, turned his attention later in his career to something he called urban overload. Milgram proposed that city dwellers are bombarded with so much sensory and social information, so many faces and demands on attention, that the brain is forced to ration its responses. People in dense environments weren't colder or crueler than people in small towns. Their nervous systems were simply overwhelmed, and overload produces withdrawal as a survival strategy, not as a moral failure. Picture your brain as a village chief who suddenly has to manage a city of 9 million residents using a notebook built for 50 names. The chief doesn't become heartless. The chief becomes selective, almost by necessity, choosing who gets attention and who fades into the crowd. That is not cruelty. That is a 200,000-year-old operating system running inside hardware that has outpaced its original design. So why does this matter for you? Scrolling through your phone, walking through your office, standing in line at a coffee shop surrounded by people who never make eye contact. Because the same wiring shapes far more than emergencies. It shapes the quiet anonymity you feel on a crowded subway. It shapes why a comment on social media from one stranger can feel meaningless, while the same words from someone you actually know cuts deep. Your brain still uses known versus unknown as its primary filter for emotional weight, exactly as it did when knowing someone meant the difference between safety and danger. There's a twist researchers eventually uncovered that flips the entire bystander story on its head. Later studies, including work by Mark Levine at Lancaster University, found that the bystander effect weakens dramatically when people inside the crowd share a sense of identity. If strangers feel connected by wearing the same team jersey, supporting the same cause, or simply being told they belong to the same group, helping behavior shoots back up. The anonymity doesn't vanish because the crowd gets smaller. It vanishes because the crowd stops feeling like strangers and starts feeling like a tribe again. In other words, your ancient brain isn't asking how many people are around you. It's asking whether those people count as your people. Change the second answer, and the entire equation changes with it. This is why a stadium of 60,000 strangers can suddenly erupt into one unified caring mass the moment a chant starts, or why a disaster can transform a city of indifferent commuters into neighbors handing out water and directions within minutes. The crowd never physically shrank. The sense of known expanded to include it. Think about your own life for a moment. The people you'll go out of your way to help without thinking twice are rarely strangers. They are coworkers, friends, the elderly neighbor whose name you finally learned last winter. Each one crossed an invisible line in your mind, from background noise into something your ancestral brain recognizes as tribe. The next time you're surrounded by people and feel that strange, hollow sense of invisibility, know that it isn't a personal failure and it isn't proof that people have grown colder. It's a 60,000-year-old survival circuit doing exactly what it was built to do, just inside a world it was never built for. Your brain isn't broken around crowds. It's simply still looking for a village inside the city, still scanning every face for the 50 it was designed to know. And maybe that's the real reframe. The next time you walk down a crowded street, surrounded by hundreds of people who don't look at you, you're not actually invisible. You're standing inside the oldest math problem your species has ever tried to solve. And for the first time, you finally understand why the answer never adds up the way it feels like it should.